Hi! So I thought I would make a little video just showcasing some of my, I guess, favourite tarot cards, or at least the ones that stood out to me when I thought, I think I'll show some of my cards today. So I love videos like this, seeing other people's tarot decks, especially if it's a deck that I either haven't worked with before or haven't heard at all about before. It's just nice really to see what other people are working with, and I guess they're all special in different ways, and so to actually hear about why different decks are special to other people is always something I enjoy to watch. So that's the kind of thing I thought I would share. These aren't all my decks. Oh no. But they are some that I'm either working with now or have some kind of significance to me. I do have some decks in my collection that I have worked with, but I haven't got that strong bond with yet that makes me feel like I can talk about them in any great depth. The ones that I'm showing you now and the ones that I'll show you in the future are decks that I've worked with for, you know, a considerable amount of time in order to really form a bond with a deck. And that's something that I really appreciate doing, and that takes quite a lot of time. Usually when I have a deck that I want to get to know, I will work with that deck exclusively for a month. Not necessarily if somebody else wants a reading, because it might not be a deck that they would find very aesthetically pleasing, so I will make exceptions for that. But anything that I will do for myself, readings, journalings, meditations, like picking a card and using it as meditation, I will just go steady with one deck for a month, and that tends to be how I form the deepest bonds. And then I get a sense of the energy of that deck, and then I know in future, when I'm not exclusive with a deck, this is sounding weird, that I can go back and actually use and work with the energies of that particular deck, because I know it inside out and back to front. And that's always a good tip if you have a deck that you like but you don't actually know very well yet. I would say work with it exclusively, and even if it's a deck that you don't actually like say somebody's bought it for you. I know I've had a deck that when I first got it I didn't like it at all really, and making myself work with it for a month, I think the first 3 weeks we still weren't getting on, and then there was like a aha breakthrough moment where I did actually think, yeah, this deck's pretty special. So that's always an idea. I don't actually have that deck out now, but that's something I can show you at another date. So, okay, the decks that I've chosen to share, I'll start with, this one. This deck it came as part of a kit. I'm just trying to see if you can get to see it. I'm at a really weird angle. Okay, so this deck came as part of a kit for, I think it was called the Beginner's Tarot. I'll definitely link all these decks anyway for you to, you know, look through. And the deck is very Rider-Waite-esque, as you can see. But what I found the most useful for it was the book that came with it, and again I will link that, because I think this is an ideal deck for beginners. It definitely started off my journey into the tarot with gusto, and it's a pretty straightforward book, and it is very basic, but I don't think the basic can be underestimated when you are, you know, when you're quite serious about wanting to explore the tarot. I know a lot of people, and I would as well, recommend books like The 78 Degrees of Wisdom. But for me, I think if that had been the first tarot book I'd read, I mean, I'm not saying it's massively complicated, but it is quite in depth. And say like the Strength card, if you just want maybe more of a paragraph, just to be able to remember that that's the Strength card and associate the image with a few meaningful keywords, then I would say that this set is brilliant for that, and obviously it lays the foundations and the groundwork for future deeper books. And so, yeah, I started very much in the Rider-Waite tradition. This wasn't my first deck. My first deck, I think it's another Rider-Waite-ish kind of copy that I got when I was younger. So this kind of picked up on that symbolism again, and it was sort of like part refresher and part reading the correct information, I guess, to associate with each card. Or not the correct information, but like the basic general accepted meanings. And if you can look, I know I actually had to write on the top of each card because they weren't numbered, so I went through that. And then when it came to the minors, I found that writing on each card was actually really, really beneficial for me. Not just so I could read it when I got to it. I mean, I'm just trying to look if this information I would consider accurate anymore. I probably wouldn't, but actually writing it at the time, it gave me just that time really to actually think about each card in turn. And this information I picked up from the book, but the process of having to condense it down into a sticker made me think about what does the card actually mean to me. And by the time I got to the end of writing out all the minors, I felt like I had excuse me, a pretty good grounding in understanding the role of the different elements and yeah, just the general meanings, I guess. I hadn't memorised them when I was using this deck, but it definitely helped clarify to me exactly what was in the deck. So I would say that that's probably a good way to start if you're coming at the tarot completely fresh. I think start basic. There is absolutely nothing wrong with reading extremely beginner books. That's how you start. So don't feel like you have to read, I don't know, Aleister Crowley's Thoth deck first because you want to get into it in depth. I mean, that's great, but you know, go easy on yourself and go in gently, because I think the more simple the foundations, the more solid they are, and then you can build up from there and develop a really good practice and a really good deep relationship with the cards. And it's not a rush, and it's something that we perfect over the course of our lives. So it's definitely nothing to feel bad for if you get in a beginner's book. And I think I did. I think I felt quite like, oh gosh, I'm reading the baby books and I'm watching people who are reading like the more complicated books, but no, that's absolutely fine. Okay, now this deck came about a year after the more basic one, and this came to my attention actually doing a day tarot course in person at a local spirituality centre place, and this was my first kind of, I guess, exploration of the tarot with others, and especially others who knew more about the system as a whole. And so that was a really good experience, and I think it was this day that made me properly get the book. And I always say to the lady who was running that course ever since that it was, you know, it was her that really set me going. So this deck has special memories for me just for that, but it's also an absolutely beautiful deck. I mean, you can just tell from the back that it's special, and it's called the Gaian deck. And the images, I'll just pick a few. I haven't actually gone through this deck to pick any favourites. I could probably do that in another video, but the images are just absolutely gorgeous. The suits are broken up into earth, fire, air and water. Look at the moon, it's beautiful. But they do correspond really well to, I suppose, the standardised meanings, but with a very earthy kind of, like a cross between a druidic and I guess a Native American kind of feel. The death card is wonderful because look, it's a stranded boat, a new life sort of springing up in the wake of all this devastation. So that's pretty cool. Child of Air. And the different suits are very distinct. That the tower is lightning. So yeah, that's a beautiful deck, and it was a good way to start because I think when I was learning with this deck, I was a little bit, I guess, wary of the occult side of tarot. So this was a nice, gentle way in, but in no way does that underestimate the power of this deck. It's an absolutely gorgeous deck. I mean, look at Ace of Air. Fantastic. Okay, I've just noticed that I'm 11 minutes into this video and I've only gone through 2 decks. I don't know what the hell I've been talking about. Focus. Okay, so my next deck that I wanted to share with you is the Celtic Tara. And this again came through another tarot course that I did. And this was one of the decks that we got to use. And this is quite a masculine deck, I would say. I mean, that doesn't mean it can only be used by males, obviously, but the energy that comes through it is very masculine. And it's very different. It's based in Celtic mythology. And there's just a real sense of power and sovereignty I get through this deck. I mean, it's, just look. You see what I mean? It's quite kick-ass, really. And I'll just try and find some of the majors, because the majors correspond to, it's beautiful, to what am I saying? The majors correspond to deity within the Celtic pantheon, as you can see. And it's got kind of like a kind of 70s vibe as well. And you can see that from this dude's hair. I don't actually know the year that it was produced, but it has that kind of, I guess, vintage kind of feel to it. Look at the foil. Foil's so cool. And this card I love. The Empress is the Morrigan. I mean, perfect, yeah? So this is just a really good deck, and I found that it really brought a different spin to it, really, and just a different interpretation. And I worked with this deck quite exclusively when I was sitting some exams earlier in the year, and probably shouldn't say, but I managed to divine which topic areas were going to come up and my overall result, and it was pretty spot on. I don't normally do things like that. I just want to make that clear. I'm not a fortune teller, and I did take what it said with a pinch of salt at the time, and of course studied everything else as well, because I think if I'd have just gone solely on what it was saying, then I would have been bitten in the bum for doing that. So I did study everything that I needed to, but yeah, it was spot on. Probably because of that. Okay, so I'm 30 minutes in. I'm not sure how much I can upload in one go, so I will stop and make a part 2 to this video, okay?